Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles in this video, but we're going to talk about digital journalism. We're going to talk about so many sites imploding, so many sites laying people off. I know we've been talking about it, but this is like dominoes, right? You knock that first domino over and they all go down pretty dang quick. Even if it took you days, weeks to set up the dominoes, it only takes minutes for them to fall over. And that's kind of what's going on in digital journalism. It took 10 years to build things up to where they're at right now. And all it took was the ad revenue and the venture capital to run out to collapse everything. And it's all over the place. It's every day. I'm reading about journalists being put out of work every day. I'm reading about websites shutting down. So we're going to talk about one digital site here called The Messenger that they blew through something like $50 million in less than a year, and they're already shutting down. That's insane. And that's kind of what happened with a lot of these sites. They got all this venture capital, and they never thought they'd have to repay it. They never thought that they would have to have some accountability, and they all thought that they were going to make all kinds of ad money, and that didn't happen. We're going to talk about Game Explain. We've got Jake Steinberg leaving Game Explain, calling it a kind of a content mill, and I'm going to muse on that because I've worked for content mills before. I actually started out working as a journalist. That's how I started and doing everything. I was a journalist, and then I wound up as a newspaper editor, and then I wound up as a website developer, and then I wound up in marketing and PR, and somewhere in there I did comics, but the other stuff paid a lot better. Web development, believe it or not, web development pays a lot better than comics tends to pay. But yeah, so I did a lot of things, but I did start out in journalism. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Kotaku tripping over their own feet again. They put a headline out here about Alan Wake 2. They have an update to apparently it was supposed to let you turn off a lot of flashing or whatever for photosensitivity reasons, for epilepsy, which, people have legitimate problems with, but they made it out like it was baby mode because people didn't want jump scares and everyone's dogpiling Kotaku now. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about advertising revenue not being where these companies think it should be. It's not anywhere near what it used to be, and just the news business folding, collapsing. And I think this needed to happen. I mean, it's horrible. And look, I own websites. I'm looking at the numbers. And I'm like, my God, this is awful. But just like everything else right now, I feel like things are being right-sized. I feel like Hollywood is being right-sized. I feel like the video game industry is being right-sized. And the media was way bloated. Like, we have way more outlets covering nonsense, than really needed to exist. And a lot of them just became, hate click farms, rage bait, and we had even sites that were once reputable, like, Sports Illustrated and Rolling Stone, getting in on this action too. And it's not sustainable. People are tuning out. They're tuning into podcasters and YouTubers and, voices that they trust. I don't know if I'm trustworthy, but, you guys listen to me. So thank you very much for that. And hopefully we will weather this storm. I'd like to build up clownfishtv.com again and be able to bring people back to write for us, which we did. But, the rates are not good, guys. Like, I'm talking like a freaking 90% drop. So if it's hurting us and we're a mom and pop operation, it's absolutely positively killing these big media companies. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. No woohoos today. This is a eulogy for digital media. It's not appropriate. Actually, Geeky's out, so we're going to talk about this. I guess first I'm going to go out to the New York Post, which is still in existence, and talk about The Messenger. Like, what the frick? How do you burn through $50 million in venture capital in less than a year? So again, this comes from the New York Post. Money-bleeding startup The Messenger, the news site that launched to great fanfare last May, didn't even last a year, shuts down after less than a year in the Titanic of publishing disasters. The startup was scrubbed of all articles Wednesday evening, hours after an insider at the publication told the Post the site will go dark. Why? I mean, at least put something up so it looks like you paid for something, right? None of the roughly 300 staffers will even get severance. Oh my God. The source added, the site's homepage was blank aside from the message, info@themessenger.com. Where's my paycheck? the Messenger. A rep for the Messenger did not comment. Probably not there anymore. Co-founder and CEO Jimmy Finkelstein, who raised $50 million to launch the site, had been scrambling to secure more funding this week as employees braced to hear whether the company would avert disaster. Nope. Guess what? Nope. So I'm waiting for this one. I'm waiting for the Messenger to become like the next WeWork movie, like how to burn $50 million in less than a year. How the hell do you do that? You have to be paying people exorbitant salaries. I mean, that's the only thing I can think. And like, renting a huge office, and God, this will go down as one of the biggest busts of all time. A media expert says the Messenger will be remembered as the Titanic of publishing disasters. Finkelstein had big dreams of turning the Messenger into a major centrist news outlet that would include hiring around 550 journalists within a year and compete with the likes of the LA Times. Well, dream on, Finkelstein. He paid top dollar to lure away talent. That's it. He paid top dollar to lure away talent from major publications, including The Post, Politico, and NBC News. He paid the site's editor, Dan Wakeford, $900,000. $900,000 to edit a brand new news site. What the fudge? Seriously, I never got paid $900,000. I was happy I had health insurance half the time. What ultimately killed the Messenger was a lack of message and arrogance, the industry source said. Hundreds of people left great jobs with the promise of creating something better, which turned out to be a big lie. Another insider added, it's shocking how bad Jimmy handled this. I can't imagine just like burning this thing down. The last few days, Finkelstein had been trying to lock down a funding deal, telling the Post on Tuesday that staff would learn of their fate in the next 48 hours. Earlier this month, a group of conservative media and business execs led by Omid Malik, a financier who backed Tucker Carlson's media venture, reportedly proposed $30 million for a 51% stake in the site. Media critics balked at the bloated valuation. They said the site was worth $60 million. How? Given the site's puny financials, weak traffic. We're gonna talk about that because these sites are way overvalued. And, we saw a lot of these video game sites trading for hundreds of millions of dollars back in the day, and now they're being sold for next to nothing. And I think if it comes down to it, we're going to see a lot of these sites get shut down or sold off for next to nothing because they don't have any value. They're basically, these websites are containers for ads. That's what they are. At the end of the day, to the publisher, the corporate owner of a lot of these sites. I'm not saying the Messenger in particular, but to the publisher of a lot of these sites, the big sites, the Valnets that collect these websites, these websites are just containers for advertising. And since the advertising's not there, there's no reason for them to exist. The site itself, it doesn't matter. It's just about page views. You could call it whatever the hell you want to call it. If the site's not getting page views for whatever reason, it doesn't serve a purpose. It's kind of like the Penny Saver. The Penny Saver, these like really shitty newspapers that you pick up for free at the grocery store. And it's like a tiny bit of canned news and like it's almost all ads. The purpose of that paper isn't to give you the news. The purpose of that paper is to put ads in front of your eyeballs, and they make it free. So, you know what I'm saying? And that's what these websites are. They're basically penny savers. They're the digital equivalent of penny saver newspapers. And that's it. So the news that people actually want, the opinions people actually want, they're willing to pay for, either behind a paywall or through a site like Substack or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's over. This business model is basically over. Anyway. So they were getting into it over Donald Trump and stuff. Employees griped about the demands to aggregate clickbait news stories in order to drum up traffic for ad dollars. Oh my God, it's as if I just said that. Yes, real journalists don't want to do that. I get it. But desperate times call for desperate measures. And we're going to talk about, some other gaming journos that are shocked at the economics of journalism. The implosion comes after Finkelstein, the site's president, Richard Beckman, crowed to the New York Times last March. The Messenger would garner more than 100 million monthly readers and bring in 100 million in revenue in 2024. In November, the site lured in just 12.5 million unique visitors, which is actually still pretty good for a brand new website. If we're being honest, in this day and age, that's pretty good. Sources says, as Beckman, an exec known for aggressively drumming up advertising revenue, sounded the alarm bells to employees that the site was running out of money. The company got off to a bumpy start, burning through cash at a fast clip and spending $39 million just on hiring. It ended 2023 with a net loss of $43 million and laid off 24 employees to stem costs. Wow. Still, as the end neared, Finkelstein shot down reports that they were considering a shutdown. So as of last month, they laid a bunch of people off and they said, no, guys, things are fine. Things are fine. Wow. The exec wrote in his departure memo on LinkedIn that he would be stepping down due to short-term health issues January 31st. That'd be Beckman. Beckman's the other guy. Prior to launch, media critics ripped the duo of Beckman and Finkelstein as two ghosts from the past with delusional ambitions in an increasingly cutthroat business. This is true. A lot of people getting into the digital media space or into media in general thinking they can come in and razzle dazzle, and they're going to be the ones that make it work, right? And it is very, very hard. Again, Google just posted that they missed on advertising again. Facebook is missing on advertising. I believe. So it's not good. Now, Google actually did well with YouTube with video ads. Banner ads are what we're talking about. And banner ads are what are plopped on these pages. And again, these websites exist. It doesn't matter how good or bad your journalism is. These websites exist to your corporate owners as containers for advertising. They're a place to put banner ads. That's all they are. And everybody's got ad blockers now, and people aren't reading your website because the news that is there is not good. Everything is crumbling. This was just a couple days ago. This is in the New York Times, basically writing their own obituary, by the way. I feel like, so there was a story a couple of years ago. This is kind of a dark story, so I'm giving you the heads up on this. There was a story a few years ago about a Russian guy who found out that his friend was molesting his daughter. I said this was dark. I hope you guys believe me, it's dark. So if it bothers you, skip ahead a minute or two and we'll get back to talking about this stuff. Anyway, he didn't let the guy know that he knew. So he took him out into the woods and he made him dig his own grave. He made him dig a hole and put a gun to his head and said, you dig this hole. And then you dig this hole. This is your grave. Now you take this gun, you shoot yourself because I know what you did to my daughter. And that's kind of what I feel like what's going on with these newspapers. And some level, they're digging their own graves. They're reporting on their own death. You know, I mean, the fact that journalism has to report on the death of journalism is just like this massive existential crisis that these people have. And again, it was supply and demand. There's way more garbage news out there than people actually needed. Not enough unique voices. A lot of voices that were given the megaphones represent a very small percentage of the country, and they got control of some of the biggest publications out there, and they used it as a platform, and they chased off the normies. It's kind of like Ghostbusters. Hey, you're scaring the straights. That's effectively what happened. You chase people off. You chase them off, and they go elsewhere. They go to Facebook. They trust their neighbors for news more than they trust you. It's like, what the heck? So anyway, this is coming from the New York Times. Darkness is over. No. Story about the Russians over. It's still darkness for journalists. Even by the standards of a news business whose fortunes have plummeted in the digital age, the last few weeks have been especially grim for American journalism. Prominent newspapers like the Washington Post are shedding reporters. The LA Times laid off more than 20% of its newsroom. Cable news ratings have fallen amid an uncompetitive presidential primary contest. Esteemed titles like Sports Illustrated, already a shadow of their former selves, have been gutted overnight as Americans prepare for an election year that will feature the disinformation wars, AI-generated agitprop, and a debate over the future of democracy. The mainstream news media, once the de facto watchdog and facilitator of public discourse, is struggling to stay afloat. That might have been part of the problem, right? They were the de facto police of what you would and would not consume. So yeah, they said the decline's gone on for years, but a painful confluence of challenges has resulted in the current carnage. Said Andrew Hayward, a former CBS News president. He said at a time when America arguably needs more solid news coverage than ever, it's very disturbing to see economic forces arranged so powerfully against traditional news sources. Well, maybe if your news was worth paying for, people would pay for it directly, and it wouldn't just be pages that you plop banner ads on, right? Everybody's talking about how it's getting gutted. I mean, we've covered this extensively, and this is of great interest to me because, again, starting out as a journalist and seeing how journalism was responsible for, I believe, the culture war, all the crazy ass shit we've seen in Hollywood and in gaming, and it was the media perpetuating it. And I talked about it in a video yesterday or the day before. I call it the Chum Bucket. And the Chum Bucket is when they smell blood in the water. You have one journalist find something, some dirt on somebody, and then they dump the Chum Bucket, and then all the other journos, and usually it's coordinated. They'll start writing articles, and it will go on. They'll trickle the stuff out so it stays in the headlines. These people knew how to game Google News results, so you could keep a person's name in the headlines forever. So somebody would go to Google them and be like, well, John Smith might have been a Nazi. We don't know. He might be Nazi adjacent. Look at all these headlines. And it's a very small group of people who have a grievance with Mr. Smith for whatever reason, or he's a political adversary or whatever it is. But, you drop that chum in the water and all the sharks come out. Now the sharks are losing their jobs. I don't feel bad for the sharks. There are some good journalists out there, but I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for a lot of them. I'm kind of with Bill Maher on this one. I know he was going back and forth with Seth MacFarlane, and I can kind of see both points. But I do think that there are or were some good journalists. I think there are good journalists. I think there are some really good citizen journalists. Just a lot of the good journalists are not working for these major publications. So GameXplain is basically a content farm now, as I understand it, and people are quitting. And I gave my 2 cents on this, unsolicited advice to Jake Steinberg, who's leaving. And basically that because the ad rates are plummeting, publishers are squeezing their contributors harder and harder. And this is what he had to say about leaving GameXplain. He said, I found the work incredibly unfulfilling, and as time went on, my technical abilities and efficiency were used against me to constantly squeeze out more videos. Yeah, sometimes if you're really good at your job, you're too good at your job and you make yourself more work. Sometimes you do something as a favor. I've had this happen to me before. It was outside my job description. I would do it as a favor, and then it became an expectation. So I got to the point where I'm like, well, I'm just going to do the job I was hired to do, because not that I'm being lazy, but if I go above and beyond and my employers see I can go above and beyond and I'm on salary, they're going to be like, well, wait a second. Why are we, like when I worked in marketing and they finally figured out I could do web development too. They're like, well, we'll just have you do marketing and web development for the same price. I'm like, no. I guess I'm just really not very good at web development all of a sudden. I don't understand. What's a hyperlink? What's email? I don't know what's going on. Yeah, so that's how you get out of it. I'm just saying. Anyway, back to what he was saying. He said, even while giving 100% and even while producing far more content than my peers, I found myself repeatedly interrogated about how I could do more. Yeah, because they're trying to juice you for more money. Because you have to do 2 videos now to make as much money as you used to make off of 1 video. How could I become more efficient? How could I sacrifice time to think or be creative in order to produce more disposable content? And that's what it is. A lot of the stuff is just disposable. Hell, what we do is disposable. Like we do it, we post it. A couple days from now, it's old news. Nobody cares. I get that. I totally get that. I know what we're doing. I was overworked and underappreciated. While my boss was streaming games or bragging on Twitter about the channel performing better than ever, I was churning out the content that got it there. I would work past midnight to cover a late Mario Kart DLC launch and then start my next day at 8 a.m. That is par for the course, man. That's how it works in journalism, like all areas of journalism. Nobody cared what I was missing out on. I would work weekends to cover big releases after Nintendo revoked the channel's PR access. Whoopsie doopsie. I was made to feel like a crazy person for thinking that grinding on content for a whole Saturday was made okay by getting off a single slow news day. Try being a YouTuber that covers news. We work 7 days a week. I'm just saying, we work 7 days a week and we have multiple websites and we have other businesses outside of that. We actually manage other businesses outside of that. That's why you will not see us on a 3-hour live stream, because we have to basically schedule out blocks of time every day for us to do stuff. And the YouTube videos are like 1 block of time. Yeah, that's why people are like, why don't you live stream more? I'm like, I don't have time. Like, I can't sit on here for 3 or 4 hours. I'm just saying. I beg for KPIs that would let me know there was at least some metric, some way I could say I did a day's worth of work and be done. If you're salaried, that's not how it works. I think I'm good at representing myself in confrontational settings. I'd be kindly told things that would change or things would change, and at worst be talked down to like a child for expressing dissatisfaction. That's okay. We will replace you with AI. Nobody can stop me now. I was fortunate enough to land some writing opportunities when I needed them most, et cetera, and also free Palestine. So I was like, wait a second, on the way out. So I don't know if he wasn't allowed to express that opinion or what was going on here, but this is pretty much journalism. I mean, this is it. This is the news cycle has always been this way, you know, and it is a rude awakening for people. Let's talk about Kotaku, since we're talking about gaming journos and people looking at losing their jobs. Apparently, there's some outrage over this Alan Wake 2 update. It's for all you babies out there if you don't want to be scared. But here it was actually, I guess, the ability to turn off flashing. And that's what the whole thing was. It's going to cut down the jump scares. No, it's about the flashing, the strobing effects, which, you know, it does trigger people. I mean, it does. I'm not talking trigger like make them angry, but it literally, you know, we have people that have epilepsy in our family, and you can't have strobing effects like that. It actually will set them off. It will. This person here, quite shallow on Twitter, says Kotaku is so desperate for hate clicks they framed feature that prevents people with photosensitive epilepsy from having seizures as the baby mode. Genuine human scum. But they're getting a lot of hits on it, aren't they? The entire gaming community. This is everybody's pissed off at Kotaku. Jake James Lugo, who used to write for us, actually, and he did very good work. Come on now. This is a terrible headline and a very unnecessary jab at people. What's with this? The update gives more options to people who look to play the game. It's not about making it less scary, especially those with sensitivity to light flashes. That's true. When I saw the headline, I thought they added more difficulty options or something. But no, Kotaku is making fun of people with epilepsy. Even if this was unintentional, it never should have gotten past an editor saying, oops, later doesn't excuse it. Is there an editor there? I don't know. Kotaku feels like we're in the end stage Kotaku. And I've talked about this before. Like, you got to their YouTube channel, like nobody's watching their videos. I don't know what their traffic's actually like. Now, they're part of Geo Media, which owns The Onion. And I guess The Onion got a reprieve. They were going to go on strike, and they made a tentative agreement. And I'm guessing that they probably made that because they know if they go on strike, they're probably not coming back. You know, I don't think Kotaku is going to be around much longer. I think that they're probably going to shut it down or Polygon down one of these days, very, very soon. Because the only thing keeping them afloat is probably archive content, you know, walkthroughs, guides, reviews from years ago. I mean, there's just gobs and gobs and gobs of content from years ago that people search for. The problem is now with AI, with Google, you search for how to beat a boss in a Zelda game, and it's going to tell you at the top of the page, and AI results going to say, oh, this is how you beat this boss. You know, so what you have to do then is basically chase trends, and Google is going to prioritize YouTube and podcasts over that. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, this is kind of unwinnable. This business model is kind of, at this point, unwinnable unless something changes with the algorithm. And maybe Google will change something. They might have to, just to make more money, because so many of these, I think part of the reason they're losing money is so many of these websites are shutting down or not being able to show ads because nobody's going to them. So it's going to be in their best interest to show ads, you know, and to get people to websites that have ads, because the AI search result, remember, doesn't have ads in it. It just shows you, and it's convenient. I mean, it really is. Like, hey, I just want to know how to beat the boss. I don't want to read 8 paragraphs into this article. How to beat the boss. How do I do it? And it tells you. But yeah, they're not going to make money on that. So anyway, guys, it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out. Is definitely end stage digital journalism, and don't shoot the messenger. I'm just reporting on the news. Gonna wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.